Can we do a good enough job of listening to all of you and scaling up and investing in the best practices around the country and taking to scale what works? Can we encourage people to make those hard choices, those courageous choices, and stop investing in what doesn't work? This won't happen overnight, but I commit to you we're trying to get there. Secondly, I want to challenge all of you as school board members to have the courage to make the tough decisions. I think so often this work is less an intellectual challenge. While there are intellectual challenges, it's less an intellectual challenge than a challenge of our courage, our will to do what we know is right. Can we develop collectively the strategies and stay the course to make sure that our children have a chance to be successful? We're here in San Diego, and this is one of my favorite places in the world. My wife and I and children vacation here when we can. Many days on a cold January, February days back home in Chicago, my wife would say, aren't there great children? Aren't there children in San Diego that need some help? Can we think about going someplace? So I love it here, but I'd be less than honest to say I'm not worried about the fact that there have been 5 superintendents here in San Diego in 5 years. That is not a recipe for success. And I really challenge the school board members here and the collective community to think about how we build sustained leadership and stay the course. And whether it's in education or in the business world or in the sports world where you have constant turnover, that's not good for children, that's not good for adults, it doesn't help us get where we need to go. And finally, I know not everyone here is going to agree with me on this, and you're welcome to boo. Just please don't throw any shoes at me. But I've been challenging mayors in our big cities, in our large and urban areas, to think about stepping up and doing more to provide a quality education for every child. And let me talk from personal experience. We've come a long way in Chicago, but there's a tremendously long way to go. But only 20 years ago, the former Secretary of Education, Bill Bennett, called Chicago the worst public school system in America. It was a disaster. And we have so far to go that you need everybody working hard to get there. We were lucky to have a great, great board, Dr. Butt, people with health experience, financial experience, education leaders, community leaders, a very diverse board. But what I said every day is if it was just me and the board trying to get where we needed to go, quite frankly, we couldn't make it. We needed the entire city. We needed the business community, the philanthropic community, the religious community, the nonprofits, the social service agencies. All of it, everyone had to step up and help to accelerate the rate of change because what was going on for children wasn't good enough. And so to me, it's a false choice to say you need a mayor or a strong board. You need both. You need mayors who are willing to step up. You need strong board members who are going to work in partnership so that our children who desperately need the best of opportunities have that chance. So I look at big cities like New York, like Chicago, like Boston, like Washington, which is starting to emerge, and something positive is going on there. And a piece of the answer is strong leadership at the top. I look at other places like Detroit, where what is going on is an absolute education disaster, a travesty for children. Something fundamentally has to change there. And in places like that, having leadership at the top matters. I began with a personal story. I'm going to close with another one from home. In 1966, Martin Luther King came to the west side of Chicago, to North Lawndale, to point out the great desperate poverty and the slum conditions there. Subsequent to his visit and the spotlight he shone on those tremendous inequities, billions of dollars were pumped into North Lawndale on the west side of Chicago back home. Billions of dollars in anti-poverty programs, billions of dollars in jobs programs, all kinds of federal programs. But when I got my job in Chicago in 2001, 35 years later, the children of North Lawndale were desperately poor. In every single school in North Lawndale, poverty rates were 98, 99, 100%. So the question you have to ask yourselves is why? Why after decades of resources, billions of dollars pumped in, why were children poor? The children were poor because their families were still poor. And as I thought about it more and more, the answer became obvious to me. Those children, those families, those communities were still poor because the only thing that can truly challenge poverty was the one thing that hadn't changed during those years in North Lawndale, and that was the quality of public education. That is the key. That is the only way we get where we need to go. Our collective work is about so much more than education. It is a fight to revive our economy. It is a fight to bring jobs back into our country, into our states, into our districts. It is the work of ending poverty. It is the work of giving every child the chance to fulfill their true potential and chase the American dream. At its core, our fight for a quality education is a fight for social justice, and it is absolutely a fight that collectively we must win. With your leadership, your courage, and your collective will to help our nation's children, it is a fight I am convinced that we will win. Thank you so much. God bless. Thank you for all your hard work. Thank you so much.
You nailed it.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you.
Just a couple of questions?
Yeah, easy. Thank you so much. Where do you want me? Thanks. How you doing?
Thank you very much, Secretary Duncan. Your words are just so inspiring because we realize so much the difference that public education can make for our nation's children. So I have a few questions for you, and so does Anne. My first one. I understood you to say that you see schools as a center of community. How do you think we can transform all of our public schools into such centers?
Yeah, I think the idea of schools being open 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, 9 months of the year doesn't work for anybody. It doesn't work for two-parent working families. It doesn't work for families where there's a single mom working 1 or 2 or sometimes 3 jobs. It doesn't work for some of our children going home to basically no parent households. I think our schools need to be open 12, 13, 14 hours a day, 6, 7 days out of the week, 11, 12 months out of the year. And after school, there's so much you can do. Academic enrichment, but drama and arts and sports and music and all the things that give our students a reason to be excited about coming to school every single day. And it should be activities not just for children, but for families. GED, ESL, family literacy nights. Food is very important, potluck dinners. And we had a series of schools at home where you literally had every day 100 to 150 parents coming to school, not for their children's education, but for their own. And I'm just convinced when families learn together and when schools truly become the hearts of the community, great things are going to happen with children.
That's great.
Thank you. That's great. That's great.
You know, in your remarks, you talked about the Race to the Top Fund, and I love the name, by the way. What are some of the examples that school boards need to be thinking about that could be part of that fund?
Again, there's such a chance to be creative here. I really want you collectively to think about how we use these $5 billion, and we have other RFPs coming out as unprecedented resources to really challenge the status quo where you need to, and to think differently again about how do we dramatically raise standards, how do we make sure we have assessments that make sense, do we have comprehensive data systems that really give us the data we need to make good decisions, how we think dramatically differently about talent, how we think differently about schools that are historically struggling, and how we think differently about time. And again, there are great examples throughout the country. And let me be clear, we're not just going to invest in those states and those districts that are already doing these great things. We want to invest in those states and districts that are willing to step up and have the courage to challenge the status quo and do some things in a different direction. So this is be much less about what you've done historically, but where you're willing to go tomorrow, and can this money change behavior. Just quickly, the one thing that was extraordinarily helpful to us in Chicago with the former Secretary of Education, Margaret Spellings, their teacher incentive fund money gave us some resources to start to reward excellence and to reward great teachers to go into historically struggling schools. We would have negotiated that for 30 years and never really gotten anywhere if there wasn't real money on the table. She had $100 million to play with. We have north of $5 billion. So think about this historic moment of opportunity and what we can do collectively to really change our students' education outcomes.